So central angles have a vertex at the center of the circle. So this is an example of a central angle, okay? And the rule is for central angles is that the angle measure equals the arc measure. So if the angle is 80 degrees, the arc is 80 degrees. The angle is 90 degrees, the arc is 90 degrees. So the angle measure equals the arc measure. Okay, then let's look at the second part right here, or look at these examples they have here. Okay, they tell me that this angle measure is 135. So what would this arc measure be? 135. Okay, on this one, we're going to, they want me to find all the missing angles and arcs. So we're going to use some of our information that we're given here. So I know this arc is 40, so I know that this angle is 40. I know that this angle is 95, so I know that this arc is 95. Okay, now let's see what else we can find out. Well, what do I know about a relationship between these three angles right here? What's the relationship between those three angles? They're a semicircle, which is how many degrees? 180. Okay, semicircle is 180 degrees. So you're going to do 180 minus the 95 that we already have minus the 40. Okay, that's going to make that 45, you said? Yeah. How do you get 45? So this plus this have to equal 180. So I do 180 minus 40 minus 95. Okay. Now, I want you to look, and I'm going to highlight this so you can see it, because this one's a little bit harder to see. But you also have a semicircle right here. You see that? That's a diameter. So this angle plus this angle, these two equal 180 degrees also. So I do 180 minus 40. So this angle right here is 140. So 40, 140 gives me 180. So angle and arc are 140. So then it's just a matter of finding this last angle right here. And there's two ways that you can find that. You can do 95 plus 45, or 180 minus 95 minus 45 to get this angle. Or you've got diameter right here that would make this plus this 180. Either way, you're going to get that this last angle right here is going to be 40. So then that arc there is also going to be 40. So key thing is, with a central angle, your angle measure equals your arc. And then it's just a matter of looking at relationships between the other ones to figure it out. Okay, now the next one here, let's look at that one together. And let's start with y. What would be the arc measure for y right here? Look at where y goes. What would be my arc measure for 180? So y here would be 180. Okay, then I have this is 45, and I need to find x. How would I find x? Yep, 180 minus 45. Okay, so x there would be 135 degrees. Okay. Now, that is a central angle. Central angles have their vertex in the center of the circle. Center angles have their vertex at the center of the circle. The next is an inscribed angle. An inscribed angle has a vertex on the circle. An inscribed angle has a vertex on the circle. So, okay. Okay, an inscribed angle has a vertex on the circle. So if you look at this, see how here's my vertex right here, it's on the circle. Here's my vertex right here, it's on the circle. Okay, here's the rule. The angle is equal to 1/2 the arc. The angle is equal to 1/2 the arc, or the arc is equal to 2 times the angle. Angle measure is equal to half the arc, or you can look at it as the arc is equal to 2 times the angle. Angle is 1/2 the arc, or the arc is 2 times the angle. So let's look at the one we're doing, this one right here. So I have a 40 degrees. 2 times 40 is 80. Or 80 divided by 2 is 40. So if you're given one, you can find the other. Okay, on this one, it says that this from here to here is 170 degrees. Half of 170 is 85, or I can double 85 and I get 170. So either of these work, so you can find either if you have the other piece. Okay, let's look at some examples of this. So the first one's pretty simple. They tell me that the inscribed angle here is 55 degrees. So, Peyton, what would I do to find the y here? If I know that the angle measure is 55, how do I find the arc? I'm looking for the arc. How do I find the arc?
180 and do something with it?
Not quite. Okay, the arc is equal to 2 times the angle measure. So if I know that the angle measure is 55, how do I find the arc?
110.
Yes, you multiply by 2. So you do 55 times 2, and that's going to give you 110 is your angle measure. Okay, now I'm going to draw some things so you can see what we're looking at here. In this one here, so sometimes it's a little hard to see it, but I'm going to draw it in. This is my angle. Okay, that's my inscribed angle. So x is the arc that's going to correspond with that. Okay, and then this is my other inscribed angle, y. Notice that x also corresponds with y there. Okay, so here's the inscribed angle. This is its arc, but y also intersects that same arc. So you can have an inscribed angle that can intersect the same arc. So first, we're going to use the formula and we're going to find x. So if this is 35 degrees, then what would x be? If my angle is 35, what would x be? Right. Okay, then x is going to be 70 degrees because I do 35 times 2. Now, if I go back and I try to find y, I would divide by 2, so y would be 35 degrees, which leads us to one of our rules. Angles that intersect the same arc are going to be equal in measure. Angles that intersect the same arc are going to be equal in measure. So since this 35-degree angle and y both intersect that same arc, they're going to be equal in measure. Okay, looking at number 6. Okay, here's my angle right here is 115 degrees. This and this, that's my angle. So which arc intersects that angle, X or Y? Which arc? Y. Which arc does this angle intersect? X. Which arc does this angle intersect? So this angle goes here to here. So this is its arc. If you're looking at Y, this angle is the one that intersects Y. So if I know that this is 115, how do I find X? 115 times 2, which is going to give us 230. Yeah. So X here is 230 degrees. Okay, how can I find Y? If I know that X is 230, how can I find Y? Yes, 360 minus 230. Which makes Y 130. And then you can actually do 130 divided by 2, and you could find out what that angle is. They didn't ask you for that. You could also do 180 minus 115. There's more than one way to catch these angles sometimes. Okay, flip over. Let's look at your first practice here. So the first question they asked you is, what is true about an inscribed angle that intersects a semicircle? So when I look at X, that intersects this semicircle. What is going to be the angle measure of X here? Well, how big is a semicircle? How many degrees is that? 180. So that's 180 degrees to arc. So what would that angle measure be? So if this is 180 degrees, and this is my angle that intersects it, how do I find my angle measure if I'm told my arc? Divided by 2. So you do 180 divided by 2, so what would be the measure of X? 90. Okay. Anytime an angle intersects the semicircle, it's always going to be 90 degrees. So some of these you're just going to look, because if it's a diameter, it's a semicircle, and if the angle intersects that semicircle, it's going to be 90 degrees. So let's look at an example of that. Look at number 7. Okay, in number 7, notice I have a diameter right here, which means that that's a semicircle right there. That's 180 degrees. Okay, so if I look at this angle, that angle right there, that intersects half of my circle. So that angle right there would be 90 degrees. Okay, now let's look at the next angle. I need a different color. Okay, let's look at this angle right here. So it goes here to here, here to here. So its arc is how many degrees? There's my angle, so my arc would be right there. So my arc for this is 140 degrees. That's 140 degrees. So if my arc is 140, what's my angle measure? How do you take your angle measure? Look back at your formula if you need to. How do you find your angle measure? The angle is equal to... Right, okay, look, when you're looking for an angle, it's half your arc. Okay, so you're going to take your arc and divide by 2. So that angle measure there would be 70. Now from here, there's a couple different ways, okay? We could figure out what that other arc is there. It would be 40, and then do half of it there. What's another way that we could figure out what the measure of y is? Well, how could I find out what the measure of y is? Let's let you think through that for a second. How could I figure out what the measure of y is? But you're almost right. Okay, what is this form right here? A triangle. What do we know about the angles in a triangle? We know all the angles in a triangle equal to 180. So if I do 90 plus 70, that's going to give me 160. And then I would do 180 minus 160, which gives me 20. Okay. The other thing that I was saying is like I said, there's always more than one way normally to find it. They tell you this is 140, so you know that this arc would be 40 because they have to total up to 180, and then you do half of that to find that is 20. So either way, that would work. Okay, look at number 8. Okay, if my arc is 80, what is my angle? If my arc is 80, what is my inscribed angle there? Okay, my inscribed angle there would be 40 because it's X is the other one. We're going to get to that one, but I did Y first. Okay, so my inscribed angle is this one right here. So I do 80 divided by 2 is 40. This is a central angle. So X here would be 80. Your arc equals your angle when it's at the center. Your angle is half your arc when it's on the circle. Okay, looking at number 9. Okay, on this one, there's a little bit of thinking here. You have 102 degrees and you have this 94 degrees. Well, if I look at that arc right there, if I look at this arc right here, the 102 degrees, okay, this doesn't intersect any one angle, that 102 degrees. There's not one angle that it intersects. Okay, so the other piece of information I'm given is that this is 94 degrees. So, just lost a sled. Okay, so this is my angle. So my arc would be from this side of it to that side of it. Can I figure out what that arc measure is right there? Yes. What do I do? You do from here to here. What is my arc measure? How do I find, if I know this is 94, how do I find the arc? Times 2. 94 times 2. What does that give you? The 188? Okay, so that's 188. So if I know that that is 188 from here to here, now I can find X. You're going to do 188 minus the 102, which is the piece that you already know, which is going to make X equal 86. Okay, looking at number 10. Okay, number 10, is this an inscribed angle or a central angle? Is X an inscribed or a central angle? It's an inscribed because it's on the circle. So x is an inscribed angle, which means that the arc is going to be twice what the angle measure is. Okay, so, or the angle measure is half the arc. So which do I know? There's no numbers on this. So what information am I supposed to know when I look at this picture? They don't give me any numbers. So there's something that I'm supposed to know. Right. Okay, this is a semicircle. That's what they want you to recognize. That this is 180 degrees. That's my arc. My arc there is 180 degrees because it's a half a circle. So what would be the measure of x? Well, x would be 90 because it would be half the 180 degrees. So x would be 90 degrees. You're always looking. Half of 180 is 90. Remember, your angle measure should always be smaller than your arcs. That'll make you get it right. Because some of you are getting like backwards, whether you divide or multiply. The arc should be the bigger number. The angle should be the smaller number. For an inscribed. Centrals are the same, but for inscribed angles. Okay, let's go through this one where we got some different information here. They give me right much. They tell me that's 95, that's 37, that's 140. So what I would do here is I'd go ahead and figure out what this one is right here. So if I know this one is 95, this one is 37, and this one is 140, how can I figure out what that angle there is? If I know that's 95, 37, 140, how can I find what that arc is right there? Add them, and then what? Subtract from what? From 360. So we're going to add them and subtract from 360. So I'm going to do 95 plus 37 plus 140 is 272. And then I'm going to do 360 minus 272, which makes this little section right here 88. So now I've got to find the arcs for each of them. So let's start with Z. Okay, here's Z right here. Z is this angle right here. So what two arcs does Z intersect? Angle Z goes from here to here. So where is its arcs? The arcs make the easiest thing to look at it is the arc is like making the ice cream cone. So here's the bottom of my cone. Its arcs are what makes it into an ice cream cone. See right here? Yeah, so here's my angle. My arcs finish up the top of my ice cream cone. So this is angle Z, so its arcs are the 140 and the 88. So you're going to do 140. 37 doesn't, you're looking at the arc is what's on the outside of the angle. It finishes up the ice cream cone is the easiest way to look at it. Yeah, but it's not inside of your angle. It's not inside your angle. So here's my angle right here. These arcs are inside of it. This is on the outside of the angle. So do 140 plus 88. And then you're going to divide that by 2. That's going to give you your angle measure as 114. Okay, now go to your next one. Here's W. So if I take W here to here, okay, so what two arcs does angle W intersect? Okay, it intersects the 88 and the 95. Those are the ones that are inside of that angle. So you're going to do 88 plus 95 and divide by 2. I'll give you 91.5. I did that right. Yep, 91.5. No, not right now. Okay, then let's look at our next one here. If I do X, goes from here to here, what arcs intersect X? Right, my 95 and my 37 intersect the X there. So you do 95 plus 37, and then divide that by 2. This is going to make that one 66. And then my final one is Y here. That goes from here to here. So its two angles are going to be the 37 and the 140. So you do 37 plus 140, and then divide by 2. Which gives me 88.5.
So basically what you do to find them all is divide them by, not divide them, from their arc and then divide it by 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to stop there. I'm going to go over